Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Monte Carlo Beach Club, I watched a woman in a white Hermès sundress laugh as champagne bubbles caught the afternoon light. Her diamond bracelet, the one our grandmother had promised to me, glinted as she raised her glass to toast with a silver-haired man twice her age. I had just spent 45 minutes pretending to browse the hotel's boutique, my hands trembling as I held scarves I couldn't afford. 3 years ago, they told me my sister Vanessa drowned in a boating accident off the coast of Key West. 3 years ago, I held my mother as she collapsed at the memorial service. 3 years ago, I watched them lower an empty casket into the ground while my father stared at nothing, his mind already slipping into the dementia that would eventually take him completely. But there she was, alive, radiant, wearing our grandmother's bracelet like it was a souvenir from a shopping trip. I stepped back from the window before she could see me, my heart hammering against my ribs. The Mediterranean sun felt too bright, too cruel. Everything felt wrong, the smell of expensive perfume mixing with sea salt, the sound of crystal glasses clinking in celebration, the casual wealth dripping from every surface, while I'd spent the last 3 years drowning in medical bills and grief. Let me go back. Let me tell you how I ended up here, 5,000 miles from home, watching my dead sister sip Dom Perignon like she hadn't destroyed my entire life. 2 months after Vanessa's funeral, my father was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. He was only 63. My mother, already fragile from losing her first daughter, started having panic attacks so severe she couldn't leave the house. Someone had to take care of them. Someone had to give up their life, their dreams, their future. That someone was me. I was 28 when Vanessa died. I had just been promoted to junior architect at a firm in Boston. I was dating a man I thought I might marry. I had an apartment with exposed brick and a coffee shop on the corner where the barista knew my order. I had a life. I gave it all up. How could I not? They were my parents. They needed me. And Vanessa, well, Vanessa had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Even in death, she remained perfect in their memories, while I became the consolation prize daughter, the one who stayed because she had nowhere better to be. That's what my mother's sister implied at Thanksgiving that first year. "It's good you're here for them," Aunt Patricia said, her voice dripping with condescension as she helped herself to more wine. "Vanessa was always the ambitious one. You were always more domestic." I wanted to throw the turkey at her face. Instead, I smiled and cleared the plates. The thing about caring for someone with Alzheimer's is that you watch them die twice. First, you lose who they were, their memories, their personality, their recognition of you. Then, you lose their body. My father stopped recognizing me about 18 months after his diagnosis. He called me Vanessa sometimes. Other times, he called me by his sister's name. Once, he called me Helen, which was his mother's name. He never called me by my actual name again. My mother couldn't handle it. She would lock herself in her bedroom for days, leaving me to manage my father's outbursts, his wandering, his confusion. I learned to hide the car keys, lock the doors at night, sleep with one ear, always listening for the sound of him trying to leave. I quit my job. I broke up with my boyfriend over the phone because I couldn't even find time to do it in person. I cashed out my $401k to pay for in-home care assistance when things got too difficult to manage alone. And through it all, I told myself it was what Vanessa would have wanted, that I was honoring her memory, that she would have done the same for our parents if she had lived. What a fool I was. The money became a problem about 6 months before my father died. Vanessa had been the executor of my grandmother's estate, a complicated trust fund worth approximately $2-3 million, meant to be split between the two of us. But after Vanessa's death, the money had supposedly been used to settle her debts, pay for the memorial service, and cover various legal fees. My parents received a small portion, maybe $100,000, which quickly disappeared into medical expenses. I never saw a penny. When I asked my mother about it, she got defensive. Vanessa had business investments that went bad, she said, wringing her hands. The lawyer explained it all. There were creditors, legal complications. You wouldn't understand the details. I should have pressed harder. I should have demanded to see the paperwork, but I was so tired, so overwhelmed, so buried in the daily survival of keeping my parents fed and clean and safe that I let it go. I trusted that my sister, even in death, wouldn't have stolen from me. I trusted that my parents wouldn't have allowed it. I was wrong on both counts. My father died on a Tuesday morning in March. Pneumonia, the hospital said, though really it was just his body finally giving up after his mind had already left. My mother held his hand and cried, but I think part of her was relieved. I know I was, and the guilt of that relief sat in my chest like a stone. We buried him next to Vanessa's empty grave. 2 weeks later, I found the first clue. I was cleaning out my father's home office, boxing up decades of paperwork, when I found a folder marked Trust Documents VL, Vanessa Louise, my sister's initials. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, a passport application, all dated after her supposed death. My hands shook as I read through page after page of evidence. $300,000 wired to a bank in the Cayman Islands, another $500,000 transferred to a Swiss account. Property deeds in Monaco under a slightly different name, Vanessa Laurent, instead of Vanessa Lawrence. She had planned this, meticulously, carefully, and my father, in the early stages of his dementia, had helped her, or maybe she had taken advantage of his confusion. The paperwork showed his signature on multiple documents, but the dates were all wrong, the notarizations looked suspicious, and there were notes in margins in handwriting that wasn't his. My mother knew nothing about it. When I showed her the documents, she collapsed. Actually collapsed. Right there in the kitchen. And I had to call 911 because I thought she was having a heart attack. It was a severe panic attack, the doctors said. Stress-induced. They kept her overnight for observation while I sat in the waiting room, staring at my dead sister's bank statements, trying to understand how someone could do this to their own family. I had two choices. I could go to the police and turn in evidence that my own father had potentially committed fraud while mentally incompetent. That would mean investigations, interrogations, possibly having his grave exhumed to prove he hadn't known what he was doing. It would mean dragging my mother through a public scandal that would absolutely destroy her. Or I could find Vanessa myself. I chose the latter. It took me 6 weeks to track her down. I used the skills I'd learned as an architect, research, attention to detail, following paper trails. I created fake social media accounts. I hired a private investigator with money I borrowed from my ex-boyfriend, who thankfully still cared enough about me to help. I called in favors from old friends who worked in finance, in real estate, in international law, and slowly, piece by piece, I found her. She was living in Monaco under the name Vanessa Laurent. She had a luxury apartment overlooking the harbor. She was engaged to a French businessman named Philippe Moreau, aged 56, divorced twice, worth an estimated 40 million euros. She spent her days shopping in Milan, getting spa treatments in Cannes, attending charity galas where tickets cost more than I'd earned in a year. She was living my inheritance, living the life I should have had. Living, period, while I'd spent 3 years believing she was dead. The rage I felt was clean and pure and absolute. It burned away every soft memory I had of my sister, every childhood game we'd played, every secret we'd shared, every time she'd said she loved me. All of it turned to ash. I was going to destroy her. But I was going to be smart about it. I booked a flight to Nice with the last of my borrowed money. I told my mother I needed a vacation, just a week to clear my head. She was still so fragile, so medicated, that she barely registered what I was saying. I arranged for Aunt Patricia to check on her daily, which was ironic considering how much I'd grown to hate that woman. Then I flew to France with nothing but a carry-on bag, a folder full of evidence, and a plan that was probably insane. That's how I ended up at the Monte Carlo Beach Club, watching my sister drink champagne with her wealthy fiancé, trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't just confront her. She'd deny everything, and I had no legal standing in France. I couldn't call the police, the jurisdictional nightmare would take years to sort out, and rich people like Philippe Moreau didn't go down easily. I needed something bigger, something that would expose her in a way she couldn't escape. I needed her to confess. On camera. With witnesses. I spent the next 3 days following her. I learned her routine morning yoga at a private studio, lunch at the same 3 restaurants, afternoon shopping, evening galas, or dinner parties. She never varied. The wealthy, I learned, were creatures of habit. They moved through the world with the confidence of people who never expected consequences. I also learned about Philippe. He was old money, French aristocracy, the kind of man who cared deeply about reputation and appearances. He had political ambitions, some kind of advisory position in the EU. A scandal would ruin him. More importantly, he had no idea that his fiancée was supposed to be dead. That was my leverage. On the fourth day, I made my move. I waited until Vanessa was alone, shopping at a boutique on Avenue Princess Grace. I'd spent €50 on a decent sundress and another 20 on makeup. I looked almost respectable, almost like I belonged in this world of money and casual cruelty. I walked right up to her as she examined a silk scarf. "That color would look beautiful on you, Vanessa." She froze. The scarf slipped through her fingers, but she caught it before it hit the floor. When she turned to look at me, her face was perfectly composed. That's when I knew she'd been expecting this. Maybe not today, maybe not from me, but she'd been waiting for someone to find her. "You have me confused with someone else," she said, her voice smooth, her French accent flawless. "My name is—" "Vanessa Louise Lawrence," I interrupted. "Born September 14th, 1990, in Miami, Florida. Daughter of Robert and Catherine Lawrence, sister to, well, me. The sister you abandoned to take care of our dying parents while you stole our inheritance and faked your own death." The boutique clerk was staring now. Vanessa smiled at her, a calm, reassuring smile. "Excusez-moi, madame," she said to me in French, "but I think you are confused. I have your passport application," I said, switching to English, speaking loudly enough that everyone in the boutique could hear. "I have bank statements showing wire transfers from our grandmother's trust fund to your accounts. I have property deeds. I have 3 years of receipts showing exactly how you've been spending money that was supposed to take care of our sick father." Her composure cracked, just slightly. Just enough for me to see the calculation happening behind her eyes. "Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere private," she said. "No," I said. "I don't think so." I pulled out my phone. I'd already queued up the recording app. "I'm going to give you 2 choices, Vanessa. You can come with me right now to meet with a lawyer I've contacted here in Monaco, and you can start the process of returning the money you stole. All of it. Or I can send everything I have to Philippe Moreau, to the French authorities, to the International Criminal Police Organization, and to every society journalist who would love to write about the American con artist who seduced a French aristocrat while faking her own death." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed. Actually laughed, a bright, brittle sound that made my skin crawl. "You always were so dramatic," she said. "Come on, let's get coffee. Let me explain." I followed her out of the boutique, my phone recording every word, every step. She led me to a cafe overlooking the harbor, ordered 2 espressos in perfect French, and settled into her chair like she was about to discuss the weather. "I didn't fake my death to hurt you," she said. "I faked it because I had to disappear. I was in trouble, bad trouble. I owed money to some very dangerous people. So you stole from our family instead?" "I borrowed from the trust fund. I was going to pay it back." "Borrowed?" I couldn't keep the venom out of my voice. "Our father died thinking you were dead, Vanessa. Our mother is on antidepressants so strong she can barely function. I gave up my entire life, my job, my relationship, my future to take care of them while you were here drinking champagne and getting engaged to millionaires. You made that choice," she said. "No one forced you to play the martyr." I wanted to throw my coffee in her face. Instead, I set my phone on the table between us, making sure she could see it was still recording. "Tell me about the dangerous people," I said. "Tell me exactly what kind of trouble you were in that justified stealing $2.3 million and faking your death." She hesitated. I could see her weighing her options, trying to decide if she could still talk her way out of this. "Gambling debts," she finally admitted. "I had a problem. Still do, probably. I owed nearly $500,000 to people who don't forgive debt. They were threatening to." She stopped, took a sip of her espresso. "It doesn't matter what they threatened. I needed to disappear. The trust fund was the only way out." "And Dad helped you?" Dad was already confused. I told him I needed money for a business investment. He signed whatever I put in front of him. "That's elder abuse, Vanessa. That's fraud. That's survival." She leaned forward, her eyes finally showing something real, fear, maybe, or desperation. "You don't understand what it's like to have people hunting you. To know that if you don't come up with money, you're going to disappear for real. I did what I had to do. By destroying our family, by saving myself." She sat back, her mask slipping back into place. And honestly, you got what you wanted anyway. You always wanted to be the good daughter, the saint who sacrificed everything. Well, congratulations. You won. Mom thinks you're a hero. The cruelty of it took my breath away. This was my sister. The person who'd taught me to braid my hair, who'd shared a bedroom with me for 18 years, who'd been my maid of honor at my college graduation party. I don't want to be a hero, I said quietly. I just want what's mine, what's ours, what you stole. I don't have it anymore, she said. Most of it's gone. The gambling, the debts, the lifestyle required to land someone like Philippe. Then you'll get it from Philippe. She laughed again, but this time it sounded almost genuine. You think he's going to believe you over me? You show up here with your Walmart dress and your crazy accusations, and I'm supposed to what, confess? Beg for forgiveness? No, I said. You're going to wire me exactly $1.2 million, half of what you stole by the end of the week. And you're going to stay dead to our mother. You're never going to contact her, never going to let her know you're alive, because that knowledge would actually kill her at this point. And if I don't? Then I destroy you. Philippe gets every piece of evidence I have. The French authorities investigate. Your perfect little life here crumbles. And trust me, Vanessa, I have nothing left to lose. You made sure of that. We stared at each other across the cafe table. Around us, beautiful people enjoyed their beautiful lives, completely unaware of the venom passing between two sisters who looked nothing alike anymore. Grief and stress had aged me. Wealth and leisure had kept her looking 25. You've changed, she said finally. You haven't, I replied. That's the problem. She picked up her phone. For a moment, I thought she was going to call security, have me removed. Instead, she opened her banking app. I can give you $400,000 now, she said. The rest will take time. I'll need to access accounts, liquidate some investments. You have 1 week. That's not enough time. Make it enough. I stood up, gathering my phone and bag. And Vanessa, if you try to run, if you try to disappear again, I will spend the rest of my life tracking you down. I'm very good at it now. I've had excellent practice. I walked away before she could respond. My legs were shaking so badly I thought I might fall, but I kept my spine straight, my head high. I made it 3 blocks before I had to duck into an alley and vomit from the adrenaline crash. But I'd done it. I'd confronted her. And I had every word recorded. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I waited in my cheap hostel room in Nice, checking my bank account every hour, wondering if she would actually follow through or if I'd have to make good on my threats. I had copies of everything backed up in 3 different places, cloud storage, a physical drive I'd mailed to my ex-boyfriend, and with the lawyer I'd consulted in Monaco, a sharp-eyed woman named Simone, who charged me €500 just to listen to my story. On the 6th day, $400,000 appeared in my account. On the 8th day, another $300,000. On the 10th day, the final $500,000. She'd paid me. All of it. With $50,000 extra that I assumed was supposed to be hush money or guilt money or some combination of both. I sat in my hostel room, staring at my phone screen, watching the numbers that meant I could finally breathe again. I could pay off the medical bills. I could help my mother. I could maybe, possibly, eventually start rebuilding the life I'd lost. But first, I had one more thing to do. I sent everything, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence to Philippe Moreau's personal assistant with a note that said simply, "Ask your fiancée about her life in Florida." Then I flew home. I never found out what happened between them. I didn't need to. 3 months later, I saw an announcement in an international gossip blog that Philippe Moreau had ended his engagement to Vanessa Laurent due to irreconcilable personal differences. 6 months after that, I found a real estate listing for her Monaco apartment, priced to sell quickly. Vanessa Laurent disappeared from public life. Maybe she changed her name again. Maybe she moved to another country. Maybe she's still gambling away money she stole from someone else. I don't care anymore. My mother is doing better. The money helped better care, better medication, a therapist who specializes in complicated grief. I told her I'd received a delayed insurance payout from Dad's life insurance policy. She doesn't need to know the truth. Some mercies are necessary. I moved us both to a small house in North Carolina, somewhere quiet and green and far from the life we had before. I started working again, freelance architectural design from home so I can still be here for my mother when she needs me. I'm dating again, carefully, someone who knows everything and doesn't judge me for it. Last week, I received a postcard. No return address, postmarked from Singapore. It said, "I'm sorry. I really am." I burned it. Some people don't get to apologize. Some people don't get redemption. Some people make choices so cruel, so calculated, that they forfeit the right to forgiveness. My sister died 3 years ago in a boating accident off Key West. That's the story. That's the truth I choose to live with. The woman who stole from our family and faked her death is someone else, someone I don't know, someone I never knew, despite sharing a childhood and a face. I have my life back now. Not the one I had before that's gone forever, but a new one, built on different foundations, stronger foundations. I know what I'm capable of now. I know how far I'll go to protect what's mine. And I know, without a doubt, that I am not the consolation prize daughter anymore. I am not domestic. I am not the one who stayed because I had nowhere better to be. I am the one who hunted down a ghost and made her pay. I am the one who won.